Welcome back, football fans. The Premier League really is delivering at the moment. Exciting games, tense, jeopardy. Nobody really knows who's going to win the Premier League, and the relegation battle with these points deductions it's been thrown wide open now. Massive win for Forest last night. We'll get onto those games in a minute, and we're also going to preview all of the games on Wednesday and on Thursday as well. So these two managers coming up against each other, Chelsea and Man United, and two managers I think under serious pressure. We will get into that, and we will also hear from Statman Joe once more. Let's look at yesterday's games then, and Nottingham Forest getting a massive win. We did sort of back them on yesterday's video. We talked about double chance, we talked about draw no bet, but also acknowledged that BTTS could land. This game I won't say it went as expected, because I didn't expect Forest to be 3-0 up. Fulham were really poor. They brought 3 players off after 30 minutes. And we looked at that away form yesterday. It's not very good, is it? But they are still scoring goals. Massive win for Forest. Newcastle 1, Everton 1. And Isak did score. We mentioned that on yesterday's video. And for Everton, that is a great point. All of the teams at the bottom picking up points. Let's see what Luton can do in their fixture. Burnley 1, Wolves 1. We had that for BTTS. Again, a good point for Burnley. But is it too little too late? Another win for the Red Hot Cherry Peppers, as we called them in yesterday's video. We backed them to win. Bournemouth against Palace, 1-0 victory, and 41 points now for Iriola and for Bournemouth. And no team has picked up more points in the last 5 games. And they're safe, they're on the upwards, and Palace fans will probably hope that their new manager can sort of emulate and try and do what Bournemouth are doing, because there is a clear project going on there, and I'm really excited to see where they can go. I think they can replicate sort of Brighton's success. I really do, under Iriola. And West Ham against Spurs 1-1 as well. 3 1-1 results here, and under 2.5 goals in 4 of the 5 games played last night. A good start to this game, but I think West Ham will probably be happier with that point. And Tottenham, how likely is it that they will finish 4th now? Get your comments in. Who is going to get that 4th spot? So we will start by looking at Thursday's games, and then we will move on to Wednesday. In reverse order, I know, but Liverpool Sheffield United is the first game, and then at 8:15 Chelsea Manchester United. We will start there because I think this is a game between two managers that are under real pressure. Mauricio Pochettino, he sounds like a broken record at this moment in time, coming out and saying the same thing after every game. And Ten Hag is not far behind him. What he said after that Brentford game, I would be very annoyed with Ten Hag after that kind of performance. Maybe he's just one of those managers that will protect his players no matter what, but there's a time and a place to just tell the truth. And I think Ten Hag avoids it a lot after the games. So which way will this one go? Well, let's take a look at the data, and for that, I'll pass you over to Statman Joe.
I've just arrived. I had a bit of a nuisance with the Uber driver, but I am here at Stamford Bridge now, and you mentioned the pressure. I don't think either one of these managers will want to inflict any kind of humiliation, any big defeat. And for Chelsea, I mean, they're in no kind of form. Both of these teams have won 50% of the last 10, 5 of the last 10. But at least Chelsea are scoring 20 goals in the last 10 games, 2 per game on average, and 19 for Manchester United, so not far behind at all. They have scored in every single one of those 10 games. Both of these teams, there has not been a 0-0 in any of those games as well, and you can see just 1 clean sheet for Chelsea, just 2 for Manchester United. So which way will this one go? I got a chance to look at Chelsea's form on the ride to Stamford Bridge, and it is just 3 defeats since Christmas Eve, which is quite surprising when you look at that, because in my mind at least the performances are not there, and Pochettino is under pressure. They are now 12th in the Premier League, 12th, and we are in April. You're not 12th in April when you don't deserve to be 12th in April. And for Manchester United, they are 6th in April, and they come into this with 2 defeats in the last 4 games. Away from home, they are conceding. In fact, they have conceded in every single game since the 17th of December. Interestingly, since they went to Liverpool and stopped them from scoring. Chelsea come into this having scored 2 or more goals in the last 3 home games, and actually they've scored 2 or more goals in all home games apart from one, which they still won against Fulham, since October. So it's not the goals. Even at the start of the season, I don't think it was the goals for Chelsea. It was just that they were also conceding them, and they proved that point at the weekend. 2-2 against Burnley. Cole Palmer coming out strongly after the game and saying that they should have done better. They've thrown it away. But what is my prediction for this game, given the data and given how important this game is for both of these teams? For Chelsea, if they lose this, if it's a big defeat, is it season over for them? And for Manchester United, is Ten Hag on those final threads in terms of what Ineos are going to do with him in the summer? There has been speculation of Gareth Southgate taking over. I do not know where those reports have come from. So BTTS for me, 1.62 implied odds with odd alerts, and add your predictions as a comment, and I'm sure Studio Joe will pass on the message to me.
Okay, thank you for that, Joe. Enjoy Stamford Bridge. You're there a bit early. It is now Wednesday, and it is now about 3 a.m. in the morning when you just called in. So what are you doing at Stamford Bridge? Let's head to Anfield, shall we? And I actually just want to show you a interesting new mural that has appeared near the stadium. I think that's when you know you're at legendary status at a club, isn't it? When you've got murals dotted around the city. This one is kind of, it's sponsored, but it's still an artist that has to go and do it, and it's amazing anyway. But I did see a few people saying, oh, it doesn't feel as good because it's sponsored. I still think that looks amazing. And if you're a pub, that's some wall. That beats a normal brick wall, doesn't it? If I owned a pub, I would definitely have a mural on the side. What player or manager would you put on your mural at your pub? Now, from pub talk to the title race, and also the relegation battle, because Sheffield United 20th, Liverpool 1st. I don't think we need Statman Joe for this one. I might be alright. Studio version Joe might be able to dissect this data. Liverpool still unbeaten at home. They've won 80% of games, and away from home, Sheffield United have won just 7% of games. I guess if this was at Sheffield United, if it was a home fixture for them, you could potentially see them scoring or trying to hold out, but I watched them against Arsenal recently. That was a big home game for them as well, and they just crumbled. I just think seeing all the other teams pick up points last night as well is, I mean, and then having to go to Anfield, I think it could be ugly for them tonight if they concede an early goal. And for Jurgen Klopp, that's probably his angle, right? He'll probably want to get this game won by half-time. So it could be where the value is if that's the way you think it's going to go. Or do you believe that Sheffield United will have this extra heroic push? Because I just can't see it. These teams are really not that great this season. The teams that have come up, and you know the quality is lower this season. There's no doubt about it. So even when they put in that massive performance, it's still not like an away win at Anfield massive. Burnley up their performance a lot, and they get a 1-1 draw. We can see Liverpool's form here, the only recent defeat to Arsenal at home. They are conceding though, that stands out. So do you think, will you go with this trend? Do you think Sheffield United are as good as these teams in terms of scoring goals that have come here recently and scored goals? Brighton, City, Luton, Burnley, Chelsea, Newcastle, Arsenal. The only team that didn't score certainly this year, but actually before that, since the 12th of November, was Manchester United in that 0-0 game. So BTTS has obviously landed in all of those games because, as we saw before, Liverpool unbeaten at home. For Sheffield United, though, one win this year and one win since the 9th of December. It is not looking good for them, and I think after yesterday's results, they must win this game. They must just start winning games very, very soon if they want to have any chance of staying up. So we can see 1.23 you're going to get. The actual odds here are going to be just incredibly low. 1.10 is the peak, so absolutely not worth it. I see some large accumulators sometimes where people put on 1.10, 1.20, 1.25 and try and combine 10, 15 of those. That's adding risk. That's just not a sensible thing to do at all. And actually betting on something this low is not worth the risk. And the bookies know that, and that's why they get people that do put, it'll always be this kind of game that lets you down on your fourfold or something. Oh, they were the banker. Worthy. That's what the bookies want you to do. So if we look at the timing data, because I think if you were having to put something on this game, if you really do want to make a prediction, then I would look at the timing data and see maybe if Liverpool can do what Arsenal did and just blitz this first half and try and get ahead and stay ahead. It's not happened in recent games, but they've been playing much better opposition, and what I mean by that is Liverpool going behind. They've done it a lot this season. They'll want to not have to do that in this game. Just get an early goal, get the game won, and just relax. Maybe take some players off to allow them to rest. Liverpool won't want to be chasing this game with 20 minutes to go or 30 minutes to go. They'll want to try and keep things fresh. Now, I've just toggled the last 10 games and we can see that the distribution of goals in the first half and second half for Liverpool is kind of crazy. They've scored 6 first half goals compared to 22 second half goals across the last 10 games. Will this one go the same way? Because if we scroll down here, we can see that Sheffield United have conceded 16 in the last 10, 1.6, and just under that in the second half. I think we're dealing with a team that does have potential to crumble at the first half, and they just don't look like they've got enough to stay up, Sheffield United. In terms of clean sheets across the last 10 games, exactly 0 for Sheffield United. If we look at their overall form and look at the clean sheets, it's just 3% of games all season, so I imagine that's one of the games. 0-0 percentage is 0. So do you believe Sheffield United are going to get their second clean sheet of the season here away at Anfield? It's highly unlikely. The next question then becomes, when will Liverpool score? Will it be the first half? Will it be the second half? And I've just jumped to the odds. 1.36 is the peak for half-time result to be Liverpool. It sometimes is not worth it. It is not worth... It's just enjoy the game, guys. Just watch the game, enjoy the game. Maybe you can look at some player files or cards and stuff. oddalerts.com/players if you want to see some of that. And with that, we will now go to Wednesday's games. Brentford, Brighton, the progressive derby, you could call it. Both of these teams very progressive. Brighton yesterday announced record profits for a Premier League team, which doesn't even include the sale of Caicedo and Cucurella, I think, someone else. So even more money to process, basically. They're doing fantastic work. How long can they maintain it? How long can they be sustainable? Because it relies on them being able to bring in those hidden gems. How long can they do that for? And they keep getting their people poached, don't they? Both of these teams. I think Brentford lost their goalkeeper coach to Arsenal in the summer, and then David Raya soon followed. Brighton have had sporting directors and whatnot taken away from them. Chelsea paid 20 million for Graham Potter and then let him go. I mean, Chelsea. Chelsea is just the playbook of how not to run a club, how not to take over a club and run it for a few months, year, whatever. And Brentford and Brighton are ways of running a club sustainably, smart, using data, using your resources efficiently, and putting all the other teams to shame at the same time. So that should be an interesting game. We've then got Arsenal-Luton. Massive game, this one. This is going to take place before Liverpool play. So this is what we're going to get now for the rest of the season. Sometimes it'll be Arsenal playing alone early and then City and Liverpool playing on the Sunday. Other times it'll change. And it's going to be interesting to see how the teams deal with the pressure. Liverpool might be starting that Sheffield United game knowing that Arsenal and City have won. They might be starting it knowing that one of them's dropped points, which then also leans into the first half market we were talking about before. But the bookies know this. At the start of the season, if you told somebody City and Villa are going to play in April and it's going to be third against fourth, I think the Villa fans would have bit your hand off, but City fans would have been like, what? Third in April? But it is a very close title race, as we know, and City, after that treble, to go again, to find those levels again, losing some of the players that they did. I think losing Gundogan is one of the biggest losses. I mean, they're still amazing, obviously, City, and they still could win the league. They could win every game from now until the end of the season and put the pressure on those other teams to do the same. But to go again and to win it again would be quite the achievement for Pep and his team. So for a preview on this game, we will jump back to Statman Joe.
Thanks, Joe. I am in Stamford Bridge now, all good, just getting my sleeping bag out and getting ready for the big game. I've brought my tuner as well, which is good. Forgot the can opener though, so it's going to be an interesting night trying to get that open. Aston Villa come into this having won the last fixture, but it is just one victory in the last 3 games. That 4-0 home defeat at Spurs, a very interesting result. They returned with a draw and then they beat Wolves as well. But Manchester City, a very different kind of test. They did beat Man City in the reverse fixture, of course. That was a Rodri-less fixture for Manchester City, and we all know how different of a team they are when Rodri doesn't play. City have come out of a very tricky spell with a victory and 2 draws against Manchester United, Liverpool and Arsenal. They would have hoped maybe to have beaten at least one of Arsenal and Liverpool and taken maximum points, but it wasn't to be. They couldn't break Arsenal down. Will they be able to break Aston Villa down, who will surely look to counter on City and expose the space that is left, especially in the absence of some of those defenders. Kyle Walker is expected to be back, but the big team news, for me at least, in terms of what might happen in this game, is that Ollie Watkins is out for Aston Villa. That is a big blow for Aston Villa and the way that they play. It wasn't until recently that City had won all of their games by half-time at home, but that stat has dropped now to just 67%, given the tight games that have been played at the Etihad recently. And could this one go the same way, or will we see a tight first half? Well, Aston Villa have conceded just 5 first half goals in the last 10 games, and for City that number is just 3. But in terms of scoring in the second half, it is 1.1 goals on average for City across the last 10 and 0.8 for Aston Villa. I expect it to be an interesting and tight, fierce battle in that middle. Villa have got a very, very good, energetic midfield, very mobile, although they do miss Kamara so much. They have seen 3 or more cards in 90% of their games in the last 10, so 9 out of the last 10, and over 4 cards in 70% of those games. And for Manchester City, in terms of their opponents receiving a card, 9 out of 10, and Aston Villa 10 out of 10 as well. So my prediction for this one, I would be looking at second half goals and also second half cards. This game to come alive in the second half, and maybe over 1.5 goals in the second half, and the same for cards. That would be my prediction, because the odds again for a home win on the Odd Alerts prediction game, you will get 1.67, which is not too bad. I would maybe prefer BTTS, and we will save that 1.83.
Thanks for that, Statman Joe, who appears to be sleeping at a football ground tonight. He said he was staying at the Stamford Bridge. I thought he just meant a hotel near the stadium. So Brighton, very inconsistent this season, and a lot of their games have ended with BTTS and away from home. That is kind of crazy, isn't it? That they've only won once since the 25th of November. And even if you look at the teams that they are beating, they beat Sheffield United, they beat Forest, Man United. I mean, everybody beats Man United at Man United now, and Wolves. So, you know, since the opening 2 away games, they've only beaten Forest away and Sheffield United away. That's not really a good gauge. Against Liverpool, they did play quite well for large parts. Danny Welbeck played well. I just found that Brighton were doing the passing they should have been doing in the final third in their own defensive third. And I think they might overpass a little bit. I know it's a style, but they really just don't want to lose the ball regardless, because they don't try that pass into the forward that much. And the players aren't there. They're not there at the minute. There's no Mitoma. Ferguson wasn't playing. Danny Welbeck's a good player, but I mean, in an ideal world, would Brighton go out and invest in someone that is a bit younger? Again, good player, but they're just lacking that little bit of depth, which can have them find that consistency, because I believe that the system is good. I mean, you saw last year when they had all the players and when they didn't have Europa League as well, they were a different team. They've also had a lot of injuries in defence as well. They've been pretty unlucky with injuries, or you could call it failure to prepare for that extra workload that the Europa League has brought. For this one, I think we could see a pretty fun game, to be honest. I think we could see goals in this one. I would go for over 2.5 goals, 1.75 on the predictions game. BTTS, yes, is a little bit lower. I do have a bit more confidence in BTTS just because the score could be 1-1, but I do believe we'll see a winner in this game. I'm thinking either 3-1 or 2-1, and I don't know which way. I think that's fine. You don't have to predict the actual result of every single game. There is no pressure or no one forcing you to make a prediction on the result. And I think some people fail to realise that sometimes. It's like, just leave it, mate. You don't have to predict the full-time result. So they were my predictions. I hope you enjoyed them. Please leave a comment, leave some feedback on the video, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next one.